Hello and welcome to Media MD, where each fortnight we prescribe each other a piece of media that we have somehow missed. I'm Reuben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
And this fortnight, did I say week or fortnight? It's fortnightly. If I say, you know what? Fuck it, it's fortnightly. We can, I'll edit that out. So yeah, this fortnight I'm coming to you with a TV show. It's a TV show called Over the Garden Wall. Mm-hmm. Do you want to get it out of the way?
Yeah. So the reason Reuben knows about this show and is able to recommend it to me is because I, in fact, showed it to him. Mm-hmm. I think there was just a GIF posted on Reddit.
It was a video clip. It was a YouTube clip.
Okay, yep, of something. So a funny line from the show.
The horse saying he likes to steal.
That's right. And then I sent that to you, and was like, "This show looks funny." Mm-hmm. Then I got caught up in Orange Is the New Black, mm-hmm. and now you're coming to me recommending the show that I showed you. Now,
I just want to say one thing about that, which I think justifies my actions, and that is a time-honored phrase, you snooze, you lose. So I was in America when you recommended me this show, and I was staying with my girlfriend, and you sent me the link, and we watched it together, and straight away we were just like, all right, let's watch this show. And so over the next 2 days, we just binge-watched the entire show. It's not a long show, and then I messaged you saying, should we do this for a podcast? And you had not seen it. So I told you not to watch it. And yeah, you snooze, you lose is the moral of the story, Elliot. Over the Garden Wall. It's a short show. I think it's 8, maybe 10 episodes that are, I think, 20 minutes each. Okay. So it's a very short and self-contained story.
It's almost more of a mini-series.
Yeah, a mini-series is how I describe it. And look, I'm very wary of recommending you too many kids shows on this podcast, but this one is definitely aimed at younger audiences. But it's something that everyone can really get something out of because I think the one word I would use to recommend to describe this show is stylish. It just kind of oozes this style. It's very fairy tale, very Brothers Grimm kind of story. Not as dark as they would get. It kind of has elements of darkness in it, but it's definitely just kind of a whimsical journey with a serious undertone to it, for sure. Mm-hmm. So I describe it as a very good show. It definitely, each episode kind of is their own self-contained little part of this fable. But each part definitely contributes to the overarching story, which is this. And I don't think I'll spoil it for you when I say it's about two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, who get lost in the woods and have to find their way out of the woods. And that's it. And the whole journey is just them trying to find their way out of the woods. They kind of get pretty sidetracked along the way.
Of course.
I think is obvious to say. And it's definitely a show which has a pedigree behind it. So the show was created by Patrick McHale. Do you know that name?
No.
He worked on Adventure Time for a long time. Okay. Early Adventure Time, I think. And then he left to do this, I think. So this show is maybe 1 or 2 years old. I'm not exactly sure. But, it definitely has that kind of Adventure Time feel to it where, I describe it as Adventure Time-esque, where the characters are going through these situations that are pretty lighthearted. Maybe there's some dark undertones, but the characters don't really notice them.
Yeah, they're just treating them as these face value lighthearted adventures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that really comes out to, especially the older audience members, a lot. And so it's animated, and it has voice actors including Elijah Wood, who you will know from Wilfred.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes, that as well. I prefer Wilfred, where he's interacting with a guy in a dog suit who everyone else thinks is a dog, which is a great show. Have you seen? Maybe
I have seen Wilfred.
Maybe can't get that to you on another episode of the podcast.
I've seen the Australian one. I haven't seen. I think they did like a US.
Yeah, so it originally was an Australian show, and then Elijah Wood was in the US remake.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Elijah Wood. There's also John Cleese from Monty Python, who is in. He basically does a number of guest roles. He voices a surprising number of female characters. Okay. And then there is Christopher Lloyd, who is Doc Brown from Back to the Future. He's one of the main characters in the show. And there is also Tim Curry, well, does guest voices. So there's a lot of people who are in...
Weird.
Yeah, it's a lot of weird voice acting pedigree. Yeah. And it comes together to make it where this show is very stylish and it is very well made at its core. It's just a really well made and well put together show. And you can tell from like the opening sequence which kind of looks like the front cover of a fairy tale all the way to the end. It's just well made the whole way through.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. One thing I will have to warn you about, though, is the ending of the story.
Okay.
So they, spoiler alert, they find their way out of the woods. Ruined, it's ruined. No, they find their way out of the woods, but there is this whole overarching story which has been going on through the entire thing about this mysterious, shadowy figure called the Beast, who is, you know, evil, incarnate, etc. And that kind of resolves kind of in an unsatisfying way, which is a bit unfortunate. Maybe we can talk about the ending after you've watched it, because there are some things that I'd like to say about it, but
okay.
Yeah, just enjoy the ride and enjoy where it goes. It resolves, maybe not super satisfying, but in a pretty satisfying way. And you do kind of get a bit of where are they now with the characters.
Yeah.
So they kind of build this, at its core it's about these two brothers, but they kind of build up their ramshackle group as they go along.
Sure.
Who stay in the woods, and then you kind of get this where are they now at the end, which kind of resolves the character stories in an interesting way.
Okay.
So, one more thing I want to touch on, which may be a recurring theme amongst our podcast, is the title of the show, Over the Garden Wall. It kind of is also a nonsensical title. This kind of seems to be a running theme for things that we've talked about. I guess in the sense that it takes place in a heavily wooded area, that kind of makes sense, but there's no walls, not really, no gardens, I don't know.
It's probably like an expression or something.
See, I've heard down the garden path.
Yeah.
Which might apply to this story, but I don't know. Anyway, putting that aside, any final questions you have about any suggestions?
Well, so I guess you talk about how they're two brothers and all that.
Two brothers.
Are they human?
And then a meteor hits. They're human, yeah. So It's very much a fairy tale set in a fantastical world. One of the other main characters who you meet very early on is a talking bird.
Okay.
And there's a talking horse in it as well. But
is it special that it's a talking horse?
It is special, yeah.
Okay.
Most animals do not talk. It's set in our world, but there's just this kind of magical woodland area where anything is possible.
So it's like Brothers Grimm.
Yeah, it's very much like that, where it's
but the Disney
basically
style.
Go into it thinking this obeys the rules of our world. Whoa, what the fuck? A bird can talk, and the characters are very much like, what, you can talk? You know?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll give you 2 weeks to get through it. This one should be pretty easy to get through.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we go.
Do it.
All right.
2 weeks.
2 weeks has passed.
I mean, so, this one was...
Did you get through it?
Yeah, I got through it.
Did you get through it?
It's 10 episodes. They're only about 11 minutes long, so it's essentially movie length. The whole show.
The whole show.
So I pretty much did the whole thing the day after we recorded because it was a Sunday.
And now you've had 2 weeks to reflect on your thoughts.
and so on that note, I don't think we've had a negative review.
Oh no!
Yeah, have we?
Oh boy!
I mean, I'm just going to sort of open with this. I reckon I'd give this one maybe a 4.
Oh, that's
or
harsh.
a 5 out of 10. I think this is the first one that we haven't agreed on. I guess so. Going back,
I did not expect that. I'm stunned. Drama.
I guess going back to what you were saying last time about how you sort of felt it was Adventure Timey. I would have think one of the things I really like about the shows like Adventure Time and probably even to another extent like the Avatar: The Last Airbender is they've got those layers which really work for children. And then as an adult, there's also those subtle layers that work in that you can appreciate, and those sort of work together quite well. When I was watching Over the Garden Wall, I really got the impression that it was trying to do that, but I felt that neither came across. I felt like the parts that were meant to be for adults, I wasn't enjoying, and I also felt like that they were interfering with the childish aspects of the show. So I got the impression that even if I had a young kid next to me, they wouldn't have been enjoying it as well.
Okay, so now that you're through it, now that we're into the spoilery part of the episode, we can talk about more specifically the overarching plot. Which I want to touch on. There is John. what's his name? Doc Brown's character.
Like the woodsman.
Yeah, and he is like this woodcutter, basically. Yeah. He's like the woodcutter from Little Red Riding Hood, essentially. Yeah. And he is kind of in this conflict with the villain,
the Beast,
who is this kind of shadow figure. And basically, what comes out throughout the episodes is that the Beast has kind of tricked him into chopping down the woods
to keep his lantern.
To keep his lantern lit, which is protecting the soul of his daughter, I think. Yeah. But it's not just trees; it's trees that are formed from like lost adventurers that kind of twist into trees. And then he chops. So it's basically tricking people into dying and then killing them and getting their oil. It's very complicated, but.
Yeah, and it all really comes to shape right at the end there.
Yeah, the final 1 or 2 episodes.
And then there is a great moment, I got a good laugh out of the bit, where he essentially makes, the Shadow Beast makes that offer to the older brother.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like, you can keep this lantern and I'll put your little brother's soul in it, and then you can spend eternity with him, you just have to chop down all the trees.
Yeah.
And you know, the brother's just sort of like, that's stupid. He's like, that's really stupid, and just like,
so that's,
throws it over. And that was a hilarious moment.
The resolution of the ending, it's kind of like they build up to this conflict at the end, and then the conflict is just the woodsman and the beast are in their own little conflict, and Elijah Wood is just like, I don't want any part of this, we're just going to do our own thing, see you later. Which is a very weird resolution, but I kind of liked. Anyway, now that we've got that out of the way, talk more about...
Yeah, well, I guess, I assumed... So we talked a bit about the title, where the Over the Garden Wall could have come from. So I actually kept my eye out for that. And so in the last 2 episodes, you start to get...
the brothers.
Yeah, before they were in the woods.
Because the show starts with them just as they're realizing they're lost, basically.
And you know, there was a wall in the cemetery that they were in, that they climbed over. And it was sort of after they fell out. So I guess that's the wall? Unless the wall's a metaphor. I think that's the wall.
All right.
Because it's after they go over that wall and they almost get hit by a train that they end up in the water, where you eventually find out that the whole thing was some sort of dreamy, maybe not a dream because they shared it, but you know, one of those like
Narnia-esque, very Narnia-esque
in Wonderland type of journeys. But I didn't mind sort of the wrap up of the Shadow Beast. Like, I feel like we got some sort of explanation, even if it didn't culminate.
It wasn't a full explanation, but it was enough.
Yeah, I thought it was enough, and you got that sort of happy ending for everyone.
Well, sort of. The characters kind of all, because there is this kind of weird budding romance between a talking bird and the older brother in a weird way, and then at the end they kind of go in their own ways. So it doesn't resolve in a way that you would expect it to. It kind of resolves in the way that makes the most sense, where everyone just kind of, it's building up and then nothing really happens.
Everything goes back to normal.
Yeah.
Which was sort of what they were trying to do, like, for the whole show, like, with Beatrice as well. She was trying to get her family
turned back into human.
So, I mean, I thought the whole point of their journeys is everyone sort of did want to get back to the way things were, and then they got there. Like, normally in these sorts of stories, though, eventually people realise that things weren't perfect the way they were, and they go with new things. That didn't really happen.
That never really happened, yeah. Even though you could kind of feel like it was edging towards that, it never really got there.
Yeah. But no, the animation style, I also felt like that was kind of mishmashed.
Oh, really?
So the background pictures were all very, like, classy, and so the way you were talking about, like, it is very much, it looks like it's just lifted from a Brothers Grimm Grimm book. Like, they're all it's a very nice art style. But it kind of contrasts with the things that are in the foreground, which are
the characters.
Yeah, and even like objects, like the things that are in the foreground tend to be drawn in a very like just a classic cartoon style, like a lot like Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
And I actually found that was kind of a mismatch. I wasn't like, I sort of felt like they should have kept it, because it started to make it really obvious what was in the background and what was in the foreground and stuff like that.
So you felt like the style of the show didn't quite land for you?
I mean, that was just sort of that vibe I was getting from the whole show. Like, I talked about the adult-child relationship thing as well. The whole show just felt to me like it was trying to be everything, and to me it came out not really doing anything
hitting
well.
any of the marks. Trying to do too much.
So, like, I just was quite whelmed.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I don't think we've ever had a conflicting opinion. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, for sure, but I felt like... I guess the reason I liked it is because of its style. I feel like you're saying the substance didn't land and the style didn't land. Just didn't land at all. I don't know. That's a bit of a weird...
I mean, I guess the thing with something like this is I ended up like marathoning the whole series in one sit down. So it's possible something like that. You know, like when you watch something in one go, depending on like your mood or like just how things are that morning, that can affect your viewing.
You're in a very fairy tale mood.
I don't know. See, I thought like I don't think that was the case here, but it could be. But I don't know.
I was just trying to assign some kind of explanation for why I liked it, and you didn't.
I don't know. Yeah, I got through it, and I just didn't really think that there was more like, and because it only took that morning after we recorded, I watched it on Hulu, and Hulu then immediately recommended me Gravity Falls, which I hadn't seen, and so I watched like 5 episodes of that just after, and I thought that was basically a much better job of what this was.
Interesting.
So
maybe I should have brought Gravity Falls to you.
Yeah, I actually,
because that is a very good show.
It is, well. and I thought it was trying to do very similar things, and I think it did a much better job.
I guess that's true. Gravity Falls towards the end of its run gets way more serious and way more focused on a central story.
Okay.
Whereas towards the start, it's kind of like, now we're investigating this, now we're investigating that. And I can see where that would be very similar to Early On.
Well,
but it kind of more...
As I said, I've only gotten a couple in, but so we shouldn't talk about it too much.
Yes,
but,
okay. No spoilers. But the ending of Gravity Falls is, I think, some of the best TV.
I've heard good things about that.
The end of season 2 is like insane.
It's like a
body horror, crazy, like...
But anyway,
I guess back to the show that we're talking about this time.
Just based on the five first episodes of Gravity Falls, I really felt like the 2 shows were trying to do quite similar things, and I felt like Gravity Falls was doing a much better job.
Yeah.
So one of the things I did quite like the character of Beatrice. Like she definitely
talking bird.
Yeah, so she really added the good humor into the show. Like especially she had that kind of, she was often that deadpan where she was always that character sort of going, does anyone else realize how fucking weird this all is?
Well, one thing I want to talk about with Beatrice is they meet her at the very beginning, and she promises to lead them to, like, the Lady of the Forest who will help them escape.
And then that turns out to have been a lie.
Yeah, she's been trying to trick them to be eaten by this witch, basically, because the witch has turned her family all into birds, and she wants to be able to turn them back into humans.
Yeah. And she ends up sort of wussing out because she likes the kids.
Because she grows to like the kids over this time. And kind of develops a romance with Elijah Wood's character in a very weird way.
I didn't pick up on that.
You didn't feel that?
No.
That's
weird. I just saw it as sort of a friendship because they were often arguing and fighting, and then they'd sort of come together. But I didn't pick up any sort of romantic aspect to that.
Maybe that was just me. I felt like
it could have gone over my head.
Could have gone over your head's garden wall. And with that, let's wrap it up. Is there anything else that you want to...
So I guess the other thing is, in all these sorts of kids animated shows, you tend to get, so I'm thinking, going back to Gravity Falls, you got Mabel, and then
who's the silly character.
Yeah, and in Adventure Time you sort of got Finn. You got that character who's sort of oblivious and is often causing the trouble just because of their obliviousness. They're getting the group into trouble. And so Wirt, the younger brother in the teapot,
who's only like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, he fulfills that role in this. And for some reason, I found him much less likable than I normally find out.
Did his character grate on you?
Yeah, he really did. Like,
because that's the thing.
He was so oblivious and pointless. Like, that it just like, all he was doing was causing trouble, whereas like normally your oblivious characters, like they tend to step up and do something. And he wasn't doing that as much. I just sort of found him quite annoying.
In shows like this that kind of toe the line between kids' entertainment, or family entertainment, and more darker themes, there always has to be... A lot of kids' shows nowadays are taking that tone of like, random stuff happening, blah, 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 and there's a character who is kind of quirky and will always have random things. And Wirt is obviously that character.
And because they don't appreciate the gravity of all these issues, and you know, and that's sort of what helps keep it lighthearted and helps like
because there is this character that is always very light and kids can always kind of relate to.
Yeah, and so like there's all this serious stuff going around, and there's just like some kid running around with a teapot on his head, and it's like so it's still lighthearted,
or with a frog on his head, or whatever is on his head for this episode.
That was one of my favorite recurring jokes, was that the frog had a different episode every name. Sorry, a different name every episode.
And the other thing with the frog is, he's with them the whole way.
Oh, and then
And then
you
at
find
the
out he
end,
can
you find
talk.
out he can talk the entire time, and he just hasn't been talking, which I liked. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the show had some good moments, but yeah, like overall,
It just felt like it was too much of a
it felt
mismatch.
a bit flat for me. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I think that's pretty much everything.
All right. So next time, I have to remember: don't recommend things that are stylish and fun. What rating did you give it again?
Fair. I'd give this a 4.5.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah,
That's harsh.
yeah.
Well, what rating would I give?
I guess
I'd probably give it.
If I had to give it a very quick review that's sort of pointed to this, I would not recommend this to a friend.
Ouch. I'd probably give it. I keep giving everything a 7, but I guess I'd probably give it a 7.5. Yeah. All right. Differing opinions.
Yeah.
That's because
That's
we're
what we do
reasonable
here.
adults. We're allowed to have different opinions, even though yours is obviously wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is now.
See, if you owned Rotten Tomatoes, I'd try to get you shut
we
down.
try, that's very poignant, and we'll take this episode back to when
All right. So, thanks for listening to Media MD. We have an email address, which is mediamdpodcast@gmail.com. And we also have a Twitter, Elliot, which is @MediaMDPodcast.
That's right. So tweet at us.
Tweet us, and we will be sure to get back to you. Next week, brains. We're checking out Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Oh.